Welcome back to The Educational Currency. I'm Robert Namoski, proprietor of the Coaching College and Ultimate Jiu-Jitsu, and we have a very exciting episode for you today. Chris.
Hey, I'm Chris Kaladikis from Maximum Education, and yes, as Rob said, we do have a special guest with us today. We have the principal of Marist College Kogarah, Mr. Simon Ghantous. Welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Okay, and Simon, tell us, what's it like at Kogarah?
Fantastic. What a school. Very proud to be the principal of that place.
Okay. We hear nothing but good things about Marist College Kogarah. Obviously, it's done amazing things in the last few years. Today, we want to hear a bit about your journey and just the types of things that you've added and brought to that school in your leadership role that have really done amazing work throughout the community that we're hearing about.
Yeah, I mean, it's a brilliant place, and it's not just about the principal of the school or the leadership of the school. It's about everybody who works there. It's about the entire community. And like I said, I'm blessed to have the role that I have, and I'm blessed to work with the people that I do. So, it's a great place with terrific kids, terrific families, and really, really dedicated people who want kids to do well. That's what it's all about.
Excellent.
So give us a little bit about your journey. So,
okay.
What high school did you go to, and at what point? Was it in high school? Was there a moment in time where you went, okay, teaching's for me? Or was it after?
It was after. So I went to school out near the Blue Mountains in Sydney, and never ever thought about becoming a teacher. It wasn't really on my radar at all. I played a lot of basketball. Point guard, obviously, if you have a look at my height.
Never would have picked it.
And had some delusions of grandeur as a young person, but I kind of stumbled into this. I loved history at school, and I loved it at university. I did a degree in ancient history and archaeology, actually. And then while I was doing that, I started to volunteer for an organisation called Edmund Rice Camps, which is run by the Christian Brothers, and it's for young people who have pretty challenging lives. Taking them away for camps and weekends and school holidays. Ended up getting a job there and working there while I was still at university. And then a brother who was someone pretty close to me at the time said, you should be a teacher. And I kind of thought, well, I love working with kids. I loved what I was doing at the time. And I love history. So why not join the two of them together? So that's what I did. I did my teaching degree, and I ended up getting a couple of small gigs early on at a couple of different schools, and then got my first permanent job as a teacher, and taught for many years at that same school, and taught ancient history, taught modern history, and then started teaching history extension and studies of religion, and did a bit of everything, and loved it, and stayed at that school for 8 years, and then sort of did a couple of other roles. Got into to the wellbeing side of things first. I suppose it married well with what I'd been doing in a bit of social work type stuff. So I ended up as a wellbeing coordinator, year coordinator it was called back in the time, and did that for a few years, all different year groups, and then moved into running a HISI department. So running a department, getting more into the academic side of leadership, I suppose. And then continued to move a few different schools. Moved into a leadership team as a pastoral care coordinator. Used to be called, now most of them are called leaders of wellbeing. And then got asked to go into the Sydney Catholic Schools office, which used to be called CEO Sydney, and spent a couple of years in there learning a lot about, I guess, systems of schools, everything from primary school through to secondary schools. And then back into schools as an assistant principal, and then ended up at Kogarah as a principal. So
nice, well done.
That's kind of my journey. Never really had this great plan to become a principal. It wasn't something that I set out to do. It just kind of organically evolved, I suppose. Wow. Over time, and people kind of nudge you in different directions, I suppose. You see things that pop up that you think you might be able to contribute to, and that's kind of how it happened.
Yeah, so with that, obviously you've got this great experience and you've had such a positive career. What would be your advice to an actual early teacher? Someone coming in, say on their prac or their first day as a casual. What would be the one thing that you could point to them and go, okay, this is what I want you to be aware of. This is the pitfalls. and this would be your road to success?
It's a pretty complicated question.
It's a long question.
Yeah. I mean, it started with one thing, and then it became.
If anyone can answer it, it's you.
No, I think. Look, if I was going to say this, if someone really, really wanted to get into teaching, I would say just come in and be enthusiastic. You got to love it. I mean, there's plenty of people who are teachers who love it, and those people that love it. I mean, I see it straight away. If I'm interviewing for a job, the first thing I'm looking at is just their demeanour, their enthusiasm. There is nothing like energy, and kids feed off energy. I remember being a kid sitting in a classroom and those teachers that were full of beans and they were energetic and they loved their content and you knew they liked working with kids, and they just they become good teachers. It's kind of stuff you can't teach at university to become a good teacher. It's so I'd say you got to love it is what I'd say first. You got to love it, and you got to be enthusiastic. That'd be the first. The pitfalls or the potholes, there's plenty of them. Yeah, there's plenty of them. But I guess early career teachers don't need to worry about that sort of stuff. Okay. Just know your content and be confident in yourself. And kids feed off you as a person. Kids learn people. They really do. And I think that's probably would be the advice I would give to very early on. Just be confident and be self at all times, because kids are very quick at picking up people who are not being themselves. Yeah. Yeah.
And I guess what you alluded to there too is you are going to make mistakes in your early career as a teacher. And as long as the teacher is genuine, as you're saying, the kids will be forgiving. And I think that's really an important part of why you need to be yourself, because they'll figure you out pretty quick, but then they'll also forgive your mistakes as long as you've got your heart and your intentions are correct.
So enthusiasm's number one.
Yeah.
Absolutely. For me, it is. It is. Enthusiasm's number one. And just being genuine, because kids pick that stuff up straight away. And you are going to make mistakes, and it's okay. And ask for help and seek advice. And, I'm sure early career doctors and early career vets and whatever. I mean, they do the same thing. You make mistakes and you learn from other people who've been down those roads before, and it's okay. I think if you really care and you're really enthusiastic about it, but you got to love it. And teaching's not easy. Yeah. We get, last few years, maybe the last decade, teachers get bashed a lot in the media, politicians, all the time. Schools do. There seems to be more and more in the media about schools all the time. And, I think if you spend a few months working in a school as a teacher, you just see how complicated it is. I could use the word difficult, but I think complicated is probably a better word to use, because it is. It's complicated, it's tiring, and it's you can have good days, you can have bad days. But what we deal with is what nobody else deals with. We deal with people's most precious thing. It's their children, and I'm acutely aware of that every day. I mean, you have the weight of the world on your shoulders at times when something goes wrong, because it's I've got 3 kids, and you know how that feels. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, and I guess then, as you've moved into a principal's role, you're now at the head of this, at the front of this. What are some of these challenges as a principal that you discovered early on once you got that role?
Challenges. There are lots of challenges.
You actually had your first year of principal during COVID, wasn't it?
I did. I did. I mean, I came into Marist College Kogarah and tried to start with a bit of a bang, and I was really enthusiastic and couldn't wait to get into it. And the next thing you know, I'm at my desk and there's no one else in school for 3 months. I was sort of sitting there for 12 weeks. So that was complicated, of course. But challenges there's lots of them. And they come and they go and they change and they shift over time. We're seeing more challenges now with things like technology at schools than we were 10 years, 15 years ago. I mean, that's just the natural evolution of things, but we respond to them, I think. I think we do a pretty good job in general. I think in schools are responding to some of those challenges. Wellbeing is the black hole. It is, I mean, kids feeling safe and feeling whole and happy. And, for some kids, school is the place of stability and the place of where they feel safe all the time. And there's a lot of challenges, Chris. It'd be very difficult to go through them all. I mean, there's pressure. There's pressure around results at a school. There's pressure around enrolments. There's financial pressures. There's there's pressures dealing with people. because in a school environment, it's a high octane. You know, at the school where I work, there are nearly 1,100 boys and there's 112 staff members, so it's a pretty high octane environment with lots of moving parts. Yeah. It's a big machine with lots of variables, and my approach to it is always the same. It is about relationships first and foremost. Yeah, it's always about relationships, the relationships that you can build. And I think relationships. There's a famous quote about schools. I won't quote who it's from, but you know, if relationships get better, schools get better, and I've always thought that. I think that relationships are everything. So challenges, lots.
Yes.
Some bigger than others, but I think schools do a pretty good job of overcoming those challenges because they are pretty intense environments to work in.
Yeah,
because with that, because we're inside and we get to see that. But speaking to parents, what advice would you give them in picking a school? What are the elements when you've got 2-3 schools to pick from? What should you be looking out for? How would you narrow your decisions down? Just a few points in actually, deciding what school to send your kid to.
Well, Marist College Kogarah is a pretty good place.
That is the best place, but let's say
wow. Great things.
Thank you, Marist College Kogarah, for the sponsorship.
No, I think, that's a really good question, Rob. And I've been through that. I've got 3 kids.
Same.
So, and it's a challenge for everybody. And it sort of hangs over your head as a parent, I think, a little bit, especially as they start to get a little bit older. Primary school is normally pretty straightforward, but you start talking about secondary school, it gets a little bit more complicated. Yeah. What would I look for?
What should a parent, because we've got a certain level of experience that we can see things parents can't. But as a parent, inexperienced with the learning environment, what should they look for? What do you think?
Well, my first piece of advice would be go and visit the school at an open day and those sorts of things. You've got to find out as much as you can. Sometimes statistics can tell lies. They really can. And so, people want to look at, obviously, NAPLAN, HSC and all the data that you get your hands on, and that's fine, and they can tell some stories as well, but it doesn't tell the whole story of a school. It never does. You want to get a feel for a place. You want to talk to others whose kids go there, and that's always, word of mouth is always a good thing. Knowing, of course, that some families have good experiences and others have not so good experiences at a particular school. It's just reality. I think opportunities for kids is probably one of the things that would be highest on my list. What does the school provide? It is not just about academics. I mean, my school does particularly well in the HSC, and I think that there's sometimes a bit of a
it's like the media promotes the HSC, so that
all
pressure to get those band 6s.
Yeah, all that stuff. But I think there's a bit of a misconception of what I believe in, what I think. It's, I push the academics, I push effort, I push, because our job in a school is to get kids where they want to go. Yeah. That's our job. You've got this end point, and whether that's going out and being an electrician or whether that's trying to get into, law at the University of Sydney, or whether that's, whatever. It doesn't matter. Our job is to try to get them on the pathway to what they want to do. That's what our job is. I think there's a bit of a misconception, and I had a meeting with a parent the other day I was talking to about this, about what I believe in terms of what schools are about, and it's not just about the academics. That's a huge part of it. It's important. It's very important, but it's about opportunities for kids. Every single student that comes into a school should have an opportunity to succeed, because not everyone's good at mathematics.
Really?
Not everyone's sitting in Extension 2 maths, Rob. And not everyone's good at writing English essays, and not everyone's good at playing the guitar. And, there are so many opportunities in schools for kids, and I think that schools should be offering as many opportunities as they can for kids to succeed, because success for a young person leads to things like self-confidence, and then that leads to more success. And you see it. I saw it today at my school. We had a thing on today, and young man standing up in front of 1,000 people singing, and that always makes me feel so proud, because it's so gutsy to do that, and have a go, and that for him today was a big success to do that and get praise from people. And I'm a huge believer in positivity, and a huge believer in affirmation and what that means for kids, because of affirming young people goes a long way. For them believing in themselves and having self-confidence. So I guess the answer to your question,
yes,
for me would be What opportunities are available
At the school.
for the school, and what suits your child? Because different kids kind of fit at different schools. It's a tough question because there's no simple answer to that.
The reason why I've been in the education for many years, then when it came to my child, it's different.
Yeah.
And then for every parent, as soon as it comes to your child, the emotions get involved, your anxiety gets involved
Absolutely.
in making these decisions. So hopefully we can clear it up a little for them.
Absolutely. I mean,
And for ourselves as well.
I mean, you would think that a principal of a school would kind of have a bit of an expert's view on where to send their own child.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't work like that.
No.
I've got, a daughter in Year 12 this year doing the HSC, and I've got a son in Year 10 and then a little one. But the two that are in high school, it wasn't just a simple matter of that's the best school, because it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
It's got to be what's best for them at that particular time in their lives and where they will fit. And then you've got questions around single-sex schools, co-ed schools, K-12 schools. You've got, of course, selective schools, public schools, Catholic schools, independent schools. There's a myriad of choices out there, and I mean, it is hard to know exactly what's going to suit your child the best. But I think ultimately that's something that a parent knows best.
Yeah. No, that's great. Look, in that you mentioned a few times all these different successes. One of the things that we're aware of with Marist College Kogarah is they've done some outstanding work in the achievement of the boys in relation to HSC and the achievement of Band 6s. And I know, obviously, as we said just before, the media can be the ones promoting that. It's kind of how a lot of people weigh the students. But I also am aware that in relation to Marist College Kogarah, probably the even more better statistic that I know that you're more proud of is that last year, Marist College Kogarah, the highest amount of growth within its system. In relation to that, what's the secret there, Simon? How have you been achieving growth in this school and getting this learning growth? Is that at the fundamental stage? That's what we're about as educators, learning growth. What are the strategies you're bringing in place?
What is learning growth?
Okay, so
Good point. What is learning growth?
I'm the parent.
a great question.
Yeah.
A great question. I'll correct you. We've been number one in learning growth within our system for 3 years straight. 21, 22,
Even
23.
better.
Okay, so it's a complex thing at the moment around, we have this, in New South Wales, we have this rank that goes in this particular newspaper. I've been pretty vocal about, and a lot of principals have been against that particular ranking system. I think it is a very unintelligent way of measuring success. And I think the people that work for that newspaper agree with me, because I've had those conversations, but it's clickbait and it works. And there's some other complications around it, but kids sit their HSC, and then at the end of the day, you're going to get a number of Band 6s, 90% plus, which is actually really difficult to do in any subject, to get over 90. There's a lot of effort goes into that, and sometimes the kids' effort gets lost in all this talk about ranks and marks and things. And you've got to honour the amount of effort that goes into a kid who gets 78.
Yeah.
I mean, same amount of effort the kid gets 92, right? So you have this ranking system that sits, and then everybody jumps on the day of the HSC and they go onto and they type, where does your school rank? And then principals get told things like, well, you only care about that rank, and that's why you make certain decisions, and to me that's absolute nonsense. It's nice when that ranking system comes out, we ranked 76 or whatever it was. Yeah, it's great, wonderful. But there's so much more to it than that. And what is most important to me as the principal of my school is two things with the HSC. One is three. I'm going to say three.
Yeah.
One, that all the kids are in the right pathways for them.
Yes.
They're doing the right subjects, they're in the right pathways for them. Because it's one piece of advice I would give to parents with the kids going to Year 12 is remember it's about them. It's their choice and it's where they want to go. It's not about what you want or what you think they should be doing all the time. Because I do have those conversations with parents sometimes about that, about this boy shouldn't be doing physics because it's way too hard, and it's really, it's impacting. They're struggling. It impacts their mental health. It leads into other subjects when they struggle. All those sorts of things. I care about the pathway. That every pathway, every subject, it's right for that particular student. Second thing is the median or average, say median, because that's the way we look at it, ATAR. When you're looking at the kids who are doing an ATAR, because not everyone has to do an ATAR. And that's important to say because ATAR versus non-ATAR is stupid. I hate the system set up. It's kind of like the haves and have-nots. It's not like that at all. Like I said before, our job is to get them to where they want to go. Yes. I just want to see them finish school, graduate healthy and whole and ready for the challenges that are coming for the world on their pathway. But for those kids that are doing an ATAR in the HSC, that average is important to me because that's for them.
Yes.
Yeah, because you've got kids who need a particular ATAR to get into a particular course, so it's for them. And it really shows the effort that they put in to get to where they want to go. So that measure is important to me. And the other one, and the most important thing, third thing, is this concept of learning growth. And you asked the question, Rob, what is learning growth? Well, look, it can be quite complicated. There's a way that's measured in schools. It's sort of done across the board. There's an analysis that's used where we look at where they started from. Okay. So we go back to things like NAPLAN. Year 3, Year 5, Year 7, Year 9, the NAPLAN, and even things like socioeconomic status can come into it, and all those sorts of things. So it's a measurement, but it's used pretty much across the board. So it's a good one to look at. It kind of shows that where we got them from starting point in Year 7, I suppose, to where they finish in Year 12, and so that is value add. Yeah. So what did we do as a school to add value to their learning? What did they walk out with? And did they grow? That's what it's called, learning.
Sounds like the ultimate measure.
Did they grow?
Yeah.
Well, to me it is.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain without graphs and statistics and all the data to show how it actually works. But
so what I'm gathering is where your child, the ability they had when they came in, where they should have been in Year 10, Year 12, and the growth is far exceeds
well, it's up
that.
or it's down.
Yeah, it's
so
up
you can have positive growth or
that's
negative
a very
growth.
easy way of seeing it.
Yeah,
So,
where should they roughly have ended up?
yeah. And then more than that, we've done really well.
So if you're positive learning growth, that's fantastic. If it's negative learning growth, that's not so good. Now, not every student's going to have positive learning growth. There are things that happen on a journey. There are tragedies and there are health issues and there are all sorts of things that interrupt a learning journey. But ultimately what you want as a school is growth. That's what you want to do because it's showing that what's going on in the classrooms around the school is having impact on learning. And so, yes, the school, Marist College Kogarah's growth is incredible.
That's it, past 3 years.
That's right. Last year in particular, 2023 and 21, 23 in particular was a fantastic year for growth. You asked the question, how do we do it?
Yeah.
That's a complicated answer. I'm going to just simply say we do it through absolutely dedicated teachers.
Yeah.
If I could probably do a bunch of dot points for you.
Yeah.
About the things that I believe make a difference to learning growth at Marist Kogarah, but if I had one, if you only gave me one, it would be the dedicated teaching staff that really works hard to get individual kids the best place they could be.
Yeah.
Yep.
We'll save the other 9 for the next podcast. The next way around. Look, I might go off on a bit of a tangent now then. We've spoken about the academics and learning growth, but you mentioned as a part of your journey, you had a big involvement in wellbeing. And obviously that's another fundamental in the school. And I don't know if I've heard this correctly about you. I think you interview every student in Year 12 as a part of their journey in ensuring their wellbeing. Explain to me and to parents out there, how does wellbeing work in a high school?
Oh, that's another complicated question.
That's the third podcast.
That's the third podcast. Yeah. We'll just touch on the podcast topics.
Yeah.
Wellbeing is a complicated concept.
Yes.
Yours, mine, Rob's.
Yeah.
The 12-year-old walking into Year 7, the 18-year-old about to sit the HSC. As we all know, teenage years are complicated years. They're tough, and now, I guess, much more than when I was their age, there are lots of things that they're exposed to that we weren't at that age. Obviously, technology has a role to play in all of that.
Yes.
And, we were at school, there was no internet, mobile phones, all those sorts of things. So, people talk about bullying a lot. That word gets thrown around a lot, and I get asked questions about that. And Bullying happens. It happens in schools. It happens in workplaces. It is, unfortunately, part of human nature sometimes. And then, issues with mental health happen. I guess I see our job as a school is to work with every single individual student and families when there is a problem. We need to educate kids on what is and what isn't appropriate in society. Over the last few years, we've had lots of things popping up from, responsible use of things like technology and being responsible online, through to even toxic masculinity, all of these sorts of things. And being the principal of a big all-boys school, that's a thing. It's a thing that needs to be talked about. And all of that stuff is wrapped up in wellbeing. The number one thing I think about wellbeing in schools, though, is this. It is about belonging. It is about belonging. So if a student feels like they belong at the school and they feel like they have a sense of purpose, and that means that they are there to learn, socially they've got a good friendship group, they trust the adults that are on the site, they have good relationships with people, they represent the school in music or sport or the arts or chess or debating, whatever it is. They go and they turn up for community days and school camps and those sorts of things, but they have this sense that they belong to this place. And that sense of belonging is everything to me in wellbeing, because it matters. It matters the kids feel like they belong, because sometimes kids won't feel like they belong in things outside of school, but school is a place where
they feel like they belong,
and that sometimes comes down to simple things like a school motto, for example, or colours of a school, and being and feeling part of it. And so I always try to do things at my school where we try to nurture that sense of belonging, that sense that this is our school and I belong here, because I think that when kids feel like they belong in a place, it has such a positive impact on them.
Yeah. And that correlates with what you said before about the success of students, is that the opportunities available
Yes.
too, and you're offering that diversity that allows them to find
Opportunities and everything, Chris. Leadership, for example.
Yeah.
Leadership opportunities for all kids.
Yeah.
From 7 through to 12. Yeah. I mean, the wellbeing question is a question that we could sit here and talk about for hours and hours and hours. You could do an entire series of podcasts on wellbeing at schools. And there's no great big answers to those things. I mean, you look at how many wellbeing programs are offered to schools.
Yeah.
It's enormous. And we've got some great stuff in, like BU, for example, like Marist College Kogarah is a BU school, so there's some great resources and stuff that we use. We've got a fantastic leader of, head of wellbeing at our school who we do, we have sort of programs for kids. We have a counsellor and we have programs for kids to try to be a bit proactive in things too, especially around academic anxiety and those sorts of things, where we do upstream programs to try to be a bit proactive in that for kids. But yeah, it's a huge question and it's a complicated one. And do I think schools do well in wellbeing? I've been at 7 schools and the answer to that is yes. I think we do, because we don't just worry about maths and science and English.
Yeah.
There's so much more to schools and education than just that.
That's it. And I guess, obviously you mentioned as well, wellbeing, it's beyond the students too, as you've also think about staff wellbeing too. And we're in an era right now of there is a shortage of teachers. And I guess as the principal too, you must be thinking about strategies of staff retention and how to keep, your teachers in there, to being able to have a high quality and to educate your students. What are some of those strategies that you're using then to support staff, their wellbeing, and I guess happy to teach at Marist College Kogarah?
Well, you've got to look after staff.
Yeah.
You do. Because as I said at the beginning of this, teaching is tough. It's tough. I mean, it is. You're under the pump all the time, and it's pretty relentless. That's why we have school holidays, because they're needed. I mean, for me, breaking the mould a little bit of what's been traditional in schools is important for teachers. So having some level of flexibility, which I know you can do in a high school and not really so much in a primary school, but, allowing some flexibility in time where you can. allowing people, having professional trust.
Yeah.
I guess my leadership style is fairly, well, I'd hope it's relational. That's kind of what I think it is. I hope it is. And trusting people to do their job. I think there's obviously things you can put on for wellbeing for staff. You can have wellbeing days, and we've done a couple of things like that at my school. That's fine, but that's not long-term stuff. That's short-term little things. I think really thinking about what's the biggest issue in teaching. Well, obviously there's been a movement in the last few years around pay, but then more importantly is working conditions and time. Because like every other industry and like in the Western world, we are like, there is more and more and more and more administration to be done. And it's, ask any teacher, that's what they'll tell you. How do you minimise some of that? How do you cut back on a few things to let them focus on what they're doing in the classroom with kids? Unless you are a teacher, you probably don't realise how much administration work there is to be done these days. It's a lot, and it takes away sometimes from the core business of teaching. So I guess to answer your question, Chris, I think about those things. Someone finishes teaching at 12:30. They want to go home and they've got a whole lot of marking to do. I'm happy for them to do it.
Yeah, wow.
Because that's their choice as a professional about where they're going to be most effective.
Yeah.
Limited, obviously, compared to other industries because we run on a timetable schedule with a school bell. But those sorts of things, I suppose, structuring meetings in a particular way, cutting back on meetings when you can. Trying to look after people in the best way possible. And also just again, I said the word before, but affirmation too, like recognising things that people do. Because if you don't work in a school, you probably don't see how much teachers do that they're not paid for. So there's a lot of stuff. I mean, from coaching sports teams, going off for a 3-day camp to there's so many things. Staying back after school, helping kids in the library till 5 o'clock, and that stuff happens daily for all teachers. It doesn't matter what school you go to.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. I mean, teachers. If any teachers watch this, they relating exactly probably to what I'm saying is, teachers are generally people who give. It's not always kind of shown that way in the media though, but that's my experience of working with lots and lots of teachers over the years. So honouring that and affirming that and thanking in the ways that you can.
Yeah. It sounds good. It sounds like you give them a lot of respect and that they're really, really happy with that.
Well, I mean, I run the school in the way that I would like to work in a school. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's great.
No, that's great. Was there, in your case, a mentor, was there anyone in particular that you kind of went, okay, this is the leadership style I want, this person I kind of model myself to?
Yes. Dr. Mark Turkington.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Who was the director of the southern region of Sydney Catholic Schools. So a whole big region of, I can't remember, 50-something schools. I worked as Mark's kind of right-hand man for a little while when I was in that Sydney Catholic Schools office. And, there were many things that I learnt from Mark about how to try to get the best out of people the right way. The right way, yeah. And some of that stuff I've spoken about is probably I saw through him. So if you're going to talk about a leader that I really looked up to, someone that I learned from consistently, it would be Mark.
So you'd say as teachers, no matter when you're in your profession, mentoring teachers is important.
Yes,
so
it is.
So how's it? So what's your leadership plans in Kogarah Marist for that? No pressure.
Well, if you start at Marist, if you start at Marist College Kogarah, you get a mentor teacher assigned to you. You can have the formalised approach like we do, and it's pretty much standard in schools. You're going to have a mentor teacher attached to you, especially as an early career teacher when you first start. But there's lots of informal ways that happens as well, and sometimes the informal ways are actually more important than the formal side of things. camaraderie and in the staff room, and that sense of helping each other out is a sign of, to me, a really great place.
I heard the maths are pretty good there.
The maths? Everyone's great there.
That's great.
I think
Yes.
mentoring can be formalised, and it is at most schools, and it is at my school. But I think that a lot of the time the mentoring that happens is informal, because people, I can assign Chris to me, but that might not work as well as I want to.
So
I might rather work with Rob. Sorry, Chris.
I think everyone would rather work with Rob.
No, not really. You don't want to work with Rob. No, just kidding. I'm okay. So your advice to a young teacher coming in terms of picking a mentor, is it something that happens organically for them, or should they see someone they have a better relationship with, or what would you advise a young teacher stepping into the profession with mentoring?
The more you can see people teach, the more opportunities you have to see what you like. Because, like everything, teachers do things differently. If you are studying to be a teacher, one of the best things that you can do is try to get a job at a school as a learning support officer, helping out kids with diverse learning needs. Because you don't need a teaching degree to do that, but that will immerse you in the culture of a school and get you in a classroom to see teachers teach. That would be my advice. The more you can see, the better. Most of the time it'll happen organically because you're in the same department, you're teaching the same subjects. It might just happen because you have a good connection with somebody. But I think we all teach differently. Like when I teach, I don't stop speaking. Others don't talk as much. Others have different strategies. But I think the more you see, the better it is. Now, kids who are coming into teaching from unis do pracs, and they might see a couple of teachers teach. But we've got a couple of young people on staff now as learning support officers who are in the middle of training to be a teacher. They've got a few years to go. But what they are seeing in the classrooms is invaluable to them. And I've told them this is absolutely brilliant for you because you are seeing teachers teach and you are seeing what will work for you and what might not work for you. Yeah. So that would be my advice. Yeah.
That's great. And then moving through their careers, and I guess you mentioned it in your own journey, your rise was very organic, and it's kind of like you moved from role to role and mentors kind of guided you in that way. I'm someone now that I've been in teaching for about 10 years, how do I stand out and like highlight myself so that when job opportunities do come up, what would help me in your principal eyes to move up the ladder?
Okay, wow.
Let me get my pencil there.
So now we've covered a beginner teacher. Now we're covering someone mid-range through their career.
I guess everybody looks for different things, don't they, Chris? I mean, for me, I don't know. I want someone who's really enthusiastic, who's competent, capable, shows leadership qualities, can work with people. Yep. And sometimes there's a bit of luck involved, I guess, about what's coming up, someone leaves a particular job, and because it doesn't happen all the time, so there's a bit of that as well. Yeah. Whether you're actively searching to look for a role, whether that's a coordinator role in charge of a subject area or something in wellbeing or whatever it is, or something like an assistant principal's role, that depends what you're looking for, I suppose. What do I care most about, I suppose, is I'm very lucky that I work with this incredibly talented group of leaders at my school who get along very well and care about what they do. Wow. And that is what's important to me. It's about they are enthusiastic, they care about our school and about what they do, they care about students, they care about teachers, and they're enthusiastic about what they do. And they're hardworking people, very hardworking people. That would be what I'm looking for.
Yeah. See that work ethic in them, but then also that passion, that genuine drive that they have to support. It's excellent.
Because teaching is passion. There's no way around that.
It is. You're not going to last long if you don't like it.
No.
It's not a job you can turn up to every day. If you start teaching and you don't like it, it's going to be a tough slog.
Yeah.
Very.
It'll burn you out fast.
Well, that's it. The first 5-year dropout rates is unfortunate in the area of teaching,
Is it?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah. Some graduates not
For a
like
long
something.
time, it's been like that.
Yeah.
So what is the first sign that something's not going right? As in something very early, where you go with whether it be a young teacher or a teacher midway through their career, the first instant, just to be aware of, okay, just be careful. Just be aware of this one thing. If you could just pinpoint, I know it's multifaceted, but if there's one thing to highlight, people listening to the podcast, teachers that have just started their profession or someone halfway through their profession, what would be the one thing that you'd be like, okay, please just be aware?
Maybe a similar thing to when we start to feel unwell and, you know, not happy in life, I suppose. I guess a bit of apathy starts creeping in, and that sense of not really being enthusiastic anymore. That it all gets a bit too hard.
Because it could be
That
other.
I'm speaking now as a teacher.
Yeah.
If I started to feel like I didn't want to stand up in front of a class, like it was too hard, like I couldn't get the energy to be there and really enjoy it, that would bother me. So maybe that's the answer to the question, Rob. Yeah, and I guess it's different for every person. But for me, that would be a sign.
Enthusiasm.
Yeah.
So that's our number one thing with the podcast. We're looking at many avenues of this. We covered sleep. Was a talk we did a few was it 2 podcasts ago. We're looking at health, general health and well-being of teachers. Yeah. That goes into many layers. And once you get that right, the enthusiasm was always there. When you started as a teacher, you had to have been enthusiastic. I can't imagine anyone stepping into the profession without enthusiasm, especially coming in from high school. Yeah. But then keeping that enthusiasm is the number one thing, as you've mentioned. So from your experiences, from your own personal experience, how do you keep the enthusiasm? Just personally.
We all get tired.
Yeah.
We do. And we all get run down, and doesn't matter what job you do. Yeah. I don't know what the answer to that question is, Rob. I guess maybe I'm lucky. I've never really lost enthusiasm for being an educator or being involved in education. There's days. We all have days where we're just tired, and you know.
So the enthusiasm actually energizes you. So it should give you that thrive.
Yeah.
Having a bad day, step in front of the classroom, kids are there, you're ready to go.
Yeah, as a principal of a school, I try to be. I am acutely aware of my body language, my the way I'm projecting, and I try to be. I mean, I think I'm quite a positive person in everyday life, and I try to project that all the time because I think that coming from leadership is really important.
So
Monday morning, everyone's had a weekend where they don't want to be at work because it's Monday.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're not going into work to sit around and have a cup of coffee and talk for 2 hours about things or whatever. And then we are getting to school and then bang, kids are in front of you straight away. And so you've got to be ready to roll. And I guess for me, Monday mornings at school, I always am aware of my energy level to start the week and how that can possibly rub off on other people.
Yeah.
So is there generally a routine you do? You keep certain exercise
I sleep
regime?
really well. I do. I sleep well. I sleep really well.
That's really...
My wife gets sick and tired of me falling asleep on the lounge trying to watch Netflix. But I do. I fall asleep quite early, and I wake up really, really early. And it's just kind of habit I got into, but it's a good sort of
good. So you get a good
7.5 hours sleep.
Yeah, very important. Yeah.
I get up early. I love a couple of short blacks in the morning every day, and I eat breakfast and then I get going. And and when I get to, I try to get to school early, and when I get there, I shut my door and try to get myself settled and ready for the day because I will normally have things hanging over from the day before. So that I can sort of walk out of the office in a clean slate and try to do that, sort of be ready to roll and all that knocked out of the way by way before the school day starts.
Yeah, so just center yourself, get yourself ready, and just enthusiastically roll the day out.
Yep.
Yeah. Good.
Try
Thank
to.
you. Try to. Yeah, as best as humanly
Yeah.
possible, because that's the one thing we're looking at the podcast. We're going to bring in people for nutrition.
Yeah.
I did one on sleep. I had a teacher give me a whole. Read a book on her, and then there was a article that we looked at, etc. So we're just bringing all the different layers that you need as a teacher to keep you enthusiastic. Especially, I love that word, enthusiasm.
And you need good people around you.
Yeah.
You need support at work. You absolutely do. Yep, you do. I mean, I'm lucky I'm married to a teacher.
Yeah.
And so she understands if I go home and carry on about something, she will generally...
I saw that a lot of couples have married up at the school. So if you're single...
No, she doesn't work on my school.
She doesn't work.
No way. I mean, you need good people around you too, especially in the early years of teaching. In fact, my sister-in-law just started teaching this year. Total career change. So proud of her. She's a primary school teacher. She's a beautiful person who was always going to make a fantastic primary school teacher. Went back, retrained, did a master's. Total career change. And I remember the first week of the year this year, when we went back, I rang her and spoke to her, and the enthusiasm she had for it was great. And, I check in with her a little bit, see how she's going. But she's got, having a support network around her is really important to start off this brand new career. She's not, a 22-year-old, 23-year-old coming out of university. She's in her 40s, starting a new career. But her support network is really important because the first couple of years of teaching is very hard.
Yeah.
Yes, as you'd remember.
Yeah, of course. It's tough. And look, I actually think that's a great point, because that actually brings me to my last question, and you've alluded to this a few times in it. There are people out there that are on the fence about, look, is teaching the career for me? And one of our values that we're going for, one of our missions, is to attract more people to come into teaching. As a principal of a great school, what could you say to possibly get them to look into that avenue and think, give it a go, come join us?
Become a teacher. It is the greatest job in the world. That's the truth.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's the truth. We need more teachers. We need good, intelligent, great people to teach kids. Teaching, and it sounds so cliche, but I say it a lot. I say it a lot at the school I work at. Teaching, undervalued in Western societies.
Yes.
We help shape the future. Of course we do.
Yeah.
We help kids move into a career path. So we help what happens next.
Yeah.
Kind of lay the table, I suppose, for what happens next for kids and families. And I think, as cliche as it sounds, it's true.
Yeah.
So much formation happens at school in a young person's life, getting ready for whatever they're going to do. There is nothing more rewarding than being a teacher. It is fantastic. You have many more wins than you have losses.
Yeah.
I mean, just as simple as teaching a really good lesson, having some kids say thank you at the end.
Yeah. Oh, it's so rewarding.
Matters. Yeah, it does. I'm in this really privileged and fortunate position, which I'm blessed to have, where I get to stand up in front of 1,000 kids and give a speech.
Yeah.
I love doing it. And then I get the conversations after that, and it's really rewarding. And that's what teaching's about. It's about getting that response from kids and, hearing them be enthusiastic about learning and excited about things.
Yeah.
When you see kids excited about learning and opportunities, it's fantastic. So yeah, I couldn't promote it enough. When anyone at my school finishing year 12 talks about being a teacher, puts a big smile on my face, and I encourage it.
Yeah. Or just your energy then, Simon. I assume you've moved and changed a lot of lives. Just with that energy, if you're bringing that to the classroom, that must be amazing for the students that have had you.
I don't know, Chris, but thanks anyway.
Okay, thank you. Thank you once again.
Okay, so
any last comments?
Yep, that was my last question. Are you going to
Well, I'd say we've got a lot more topics we need to cover.
Yeah, no, so
we've got ongoing guest here.
a few reasons to come back.
Yes.
But
Okay.
we appreciate your time tonight, Simon. Thank you so much for coming onto the show and sharing your wealth of knowledge.
Yeah, thank you for your bringing out your level of experience as well, and it really, really brings it home for us as teachers as well as parents.
Thanks for having me. It's been great. I know I could talk about this for hours on end. So.
We will again.
Yes, thank you, Simon.
Thanks.
Thank you. Once again, Education Podcast. Actually, this is quite a big day for us because we're on our, 12th, 13th episode, but we did launch our first episode today.
So there we go.
We're a lot better now, so it could be a little cringy. Our first ones did take a bit of practice.
Yeah.
So please subscribe and we'll see you again.
Thanks a lot. I'm Chris Kaladakis from Maximum Education.
I'm Robert Namoski, and thank you to our guests
Thank
as
you,
well.
Simon.
Welcome.
Cheers.